devices hang out your bachelor's. We're going to go to the page. Now today, class, I want you to make sure that you read the instructions carefully. So when you're tested on it, you make sure that you do what you're supposed to. Do you understand? Put your hand down. Yesterday we learned about the greatest common denominator. The greatest common denominator is the one that is the biggest and that is the most common denominator. Who remembers that? There has been an ongoing problem within my working environment with student motivation and engagement in class, and how that links itself to the lack of communication between students, parents, and teachers. So with the ever-popular social networking wave hitting the ages of elementary students, I wanted to see what would happen if I incorporated an age-appropriate social network to assist this problem. So by receiving input from my critical friends, developing a timeline to plan out my project, and designing a clear plan of action, I was ready to begin my research. So one can imagine how desperate I was to find the perfect tool to help with my problem. While scouring the web and wearing out the Google search engines, I finally discovered the age-appropriate site of Edmodo while reading a blog during the Media Literacy and Research Methodologies course. After much research and learning the ins and outs of Edmodo myself, you can imagine how elated I was to find such a gem that was specifically for education and not blocked by my district. Now it was time to discover what research had been done already to help guide my own project. So through my literature review, there were many resources that influenced and guided my action research project, but three in particular that I wanted to share. The first being about how research has shown that internet-based tools and uses that are applied and integrated into the classroom greatly influence learning. And secondly, a study was done in 2009 on how Facebook had become one of the most popular social networking sites for students ranging from 4th all the way to 12th grade. And finally, Mitchell, Falger, and Wetzel discovered in their research that communication sources that involved Web 2.0 tools made parents feel more welcome to participate in their child's learning process, and therefore creating more discussion of school activities in the home. All three of these sources gave me the springboard I needed to start designing and developing my research project to be successful. So from the beginning of Cycle 1, I wanted to get an idea where my students were at with computer use at home and at school. So I designed a survey through Google Forms to receive my quantitative data. I asked questions ranging from, do you have a computer at home? Do you have a social network account? What is it? And what do you use it mostly for? After receiving 20 responses from my sample size of 21, I determined that my students were ideal to perform this project, as I received a 90% feedback response to students having internet access at home and using it mainly for social networking, music, and pictures. Have you hit a wall with your students?
Ow. Just a second, Mom! I'm on Facebook! Gosh.
I launched my project with several media assets that I created in months 4 and 5 of the program, just so students, parents, and administration could get an idea as to what I was trying to accomplish with my action research project. First, I used this particular video to generate immediate interest and to also compare the educational use of Edmodo to the other social networks that students were already using.
Edmodo is a free, age-appropriate social media site that offers RSS feeds.
The second asset I created was an Edmodo tutorial video in which I posted to our Classroom Edmodo site for students and parents to watch in order to get to know the ins and outs of the website. Straight up Edmodo will make you work. Finally, I even recorded an Edmodo rap in order to get those musical intelligences' attention. If my students hadn't believed that their teacher was serious about using Edmodo from before, they definitely did now. Kicking out the technology to brave breed. So with my action research project completely launched and introduced, I guided my students in the beginning stages of using Edmodo and observed my students rapidly grab hold of this new tool and run with it. I noticed that students were constantly using Edmodo in class, before and after school, during computer lab, and at home. Through daily observations and recording student activity, I watched students use Edmodo with multiple postings, submitting assignments quickly and on time, completing team projects, and discussing their grades. Overall, Cycle 1 produced very encouraging results in how Edmodo was assisting student motivation and engagement. Cycle 2 began the same as Cycle 1, with the use of another survey. This time my focus was on receiving input from the students on how Edmodo can be used more effectively. Students responded quickly with an overwhelming demand for more use of videos, pictures, and assignments within the site, and a desire for more time on Edmodo every day to enhance learning. I also conducted several interviews to document student responses to their likes and dislikes of Edmodo to this point. All of this data helped me gear my objectives of Cycle 2 to a more extensive level in using social media. An example of this extension was the implementation of a media-based project to where my students needed to use the Web 2.0 tool of Animoto in order to create an interactive slideshow for our unit on ancient Egypt. I also utilized the LMS of Schoology, which I learned about in month 10 of the program, to scaffold the learning in an online environment. Through a ScreenFlow tutorial I created and posted on Edmodo, a student-friendly 4-point rubric, and several model products, students were to produce their project and then post their link on Edmodo. Students were then given the opportunity to critique their peers on their projects through posting on a particular student's work. This really created some interesting conversation and feedback for the class to discuss. In fact, I wanted to share a student sample of an Animoto project submitted through Edmodo. Much like Cycle 1, Cycle 2 proved to be very enlightening and produced positive results for my research at this stage. As I evaluated my action research project, I felt it was successful overall. Although a true evaluation analysis doesn't just show the positives, but rather it tends to highlight the tweaks and adjustments that are necessary for improvement. I think that is the whole purpose behind an action research project anyway. Identify the problem, design and develop a plan for attack, implement that design, and then reflect on what can be improved. The one piece that seemed to not improve was the communication between parents, students, and myself. When I initiate Cycle 3, parents would become my target audience. Edmodo recently added a feature that enables parents to have their own Edmodo profile and can then interact on a more personal basis with myself and with the activities their child is involved with. This addition alone could produce a higher level of communication between parents, students, and teachers. I feel the most relevant aspect of this project was that students began to truly become independent learners since they had a tool that allowed them to explore the learning not only at school, but within their own home. That is how learning is made relevant to the 21st century learner, and that is what I will continue to build upon as I further develop this process with future classes. Okay, students, you know what time it is. It's Edmodo time!